Hey guys, I'm back. I'm also Sarah, and Dubai is not like other girls. When the West looks at Dubai, we tend to see it as something utopian. It's technologically advanced, but still has its culture, so it's the best of both worlds. And if Dubai is just an aspirational goal, just barely out of reach for you, maybe it can stay that way forever. But in reality, the city was built on a very fragile foundation. And when we look a little deeper into why it is the way it is, and why the people who like it, I think we'll see a very alarming pattern. But before that, we have to find out how Dubai became Dubai. The land where Dubai now sits used to be a fishing village, but when they struck oil in the 60s, they started selling it and making a ton of money. But in the time since, they've been spending their money building up these crazy cities. And you might wonder, how do they do that? Oh yeah, I'm doing my makeup. I forgot to tell you, but I'm doing my makeup. Oil money runs deep, pun intended, but our friends over at the UAE decided to use some unconventional methods to pinch some pennies. And by unconventional techniques, I do mean labor abuse. Dubai was built on the backs of migrant workers from South Asia. Primarily Indian, Pakistani, and Bangladeshi people were most represented in the workforce. To have to move to a different country and send back money to your family is a very, very common practice in the third world. I'm just gonna say third world for now. I know it's like global south or east. I'm saying third world for now. Oftentimes, job prospects in your own country can be very scarce or they don't pay nearly enough. So going to a different country where they provide your housing and you can send even more money back to your family makes a lot of sense for a lot of people. The consequences of this kind of labor market in the East are definitely many, but we're not talking about that right now. The issue with migrant workers, specifically in Dubai, is that oftentimes when they landed, their passport would be taken from them in an attempt to stop them from leaving. Whether earning it back was an issue of paying off some sort of debt or working a certain amount of hours, I'm not entirely sure, but it's an issue either way. In the event your passport wasn't taken, if you try to leave, they might threaten you with not paying you the money that you've already earned. This incentivized people to stay because they needed to keep supporting their families or because they literally couldn't leave without a passport. These instances, along with other labor abuses, actually ended up with migrant workers committing suicide. So when you look at how grand Dubai is, when you see all those tall buildings, make sure you remember it was built to pander to you off the backs of migrant workers who were constantly exploited. But Sarah, that already happened in the past. We can't do anything to stop it now. What's wrong with us going on vacation there? A lot of our countries were built on the backs of slave labor and exploitative labor, and a lot of the things that we own were built and manufactured in places taking advantage of poor workers. Why is Dubai any different? Why do you care more about Dubai? I don't care more about Dubai's exploitative labor practices versus America's exploitative labor practices. I've just seen some social media trends that either try to hide this history or validate it in one way or another, and I haven't seen enough criticism that I like, so I'm gonna give it to you myself. When we're talking about our perception of Dubai, we have to look into what is informing that perception. I don't know if you've noticed, but over the past few years, we've had a rise in passport bros, men who travel the world with this sort of alpha mindset. They tend to say they're entrepreneurs, whatever that means. And they tend to go hand in hand with those misogynistic Andrew Tate types. You can be a passport bro and be an Andrew Tate wannabe. You can be an Andrew Tate wannabe and be a passport bro. Usually those things exist in the same place. Traveling around the world is one of those signs of wealth Andrew Tate likes to flex when he's not stuck in jail in Romania. So of course all his little disciples love to do it too. And Dubai is the perfect place to go for them because it completely panders to them. It plays right into their teeny tiny, eeny weeny little misogynistic hands because they can talk about how women in the Middle East are so much more traditional, they cover up so much more, they're so modest and so much better than women in the West, but they can still contract sex workers because it doesn't matter what they say, they will always want to be around pretty women. And that's fine. I would also too, but I also think they deserve rights and not to be called a slut for being around you. People like Andrew Tate also use it as a metaphor for the people who follow them.
But every country has resources, but the problem is too much corruption there. For the rulers don't invest what they have in the country, you know, in the infrastructure and stuff.
Yeah, the people will always make excuses, but
Yeah.
you're completely right. There's a whole bunch of African nations with mass resource.
More, maybe.
Yeah,
than UAE.
and there's a whole bunch of Western nations with a bunch of resource. But yeah, I think it comes down to the leadership and the vision of the leadership and the fact they truly care.
Exactly,
And
yeah.
and that's different. And that's an argument that can be long and very, very detailed and interesting about the differences between a democracy and perhaps the ruling system here.
Do you know how many times Andrew Tate's teachings have gotten people laid? Probably none. No women like him. No rational, actually talking about the truth women like him. And the thing is, it's the same with other Middle Eastern countries. Do all of us love our colonial capitalistic overlords who took control of our countries and tried to take our resources? No. But you know who doesn't like to hear that? The colonial capitalistic overlords. And you know why Dubai is a fantasy for wealth hoarders? Because it says, hey, you're perfect, you're lovely, come spend your money. You can have everything you've ever wanted here, and there's no crime, and it's completely clean, and everything is perfect. The issue with Dubai, though, is that it completely hides the consequences of wealth hoarding. When you can't see the working class, when you can't see poor people, homeless people, then it's much easier to say that they don't exist, that this place is a utopia, and that's the reason there's no crime, because all of us here are perfect. The reason why there's no petty crime in Dubai is because it exists like a very, very expensive retirement community. You're only let into this retirement community if you have a certain amount of money. And when you have that certain amount of money, which is too much, then what's the point in stealing someone's wallet? Is this the ideal futuristic utopia? No, class segregation like that isn't healthy, because if there is a well-meaning, nice wealth hoarder, they don't even see where they could give charity, where they could be contributing to the development of poorer people. And the wealth hoarders who feel kind of guilty about wealth hoarding don't have to see them either. So they don't have to feel guilty because there isn't a homeless guy on the corner who has no money while you're holding all the money in the world. If you are a sane, rational, compassionate, empathetic person, seeing people on the streets who cannot afford food, who cannot afford housing, should break your heart. It should make you feel bad. Whether you should feel guilt, I think depends on how much money you have, but definitely sad. Seeing other people struggle and feeling bad about it is like the bare minimum requirement for feeling empathy. So all these people who don't have to do it are losing empathy. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I don't have any degrees or any authorization to talk about the brain. But in my opinion, when you don't have to practice that empathy, a lot of times people will lose it because it is easier to lose that empathy than to practice it when there is nothing to practice it with. Is that what creates these crazy out of touch people on social media who just say like, just make more money? Why don't you just have more money? If you're 20 and you don't have a Bugatti, why don't you have a Bugatti? Maybe that really is. Maybe they're putting on an act. Maybe they're just stupid and crazy. But Dubai exists as a safe haven for guilt-free wealth hoarding. At the same time, it has or will have any amenity you might possibly want in this entire world. If you want to go skiing, you can go skiing. If you want to go snowboarding, you can go snowboarding. You want to eat the best food in the world? Well, it's here too. You can do anything you ever want without leaving this little bubble. And in the process of doing that, you're even further shrinking your chances to practice that empathy. Because as long as they keep you in the bubble, keep you happily paying your money, telling your friends how much you love it, bringing more rich people in, bringing new bowls, they can keep excusing their exploitative labor practices because look at how much money it's making them. What they're looking for is the kind of protection that the US and UK get for being Western countries. Have the US and UK done awful stuff? Have they tortured people? Have they violated human rights? Yes, but because of their station in the world, the privilege that they have as colonial powers, as Western powers, they can get away with whatever they want. It doesn't matter. What Dubai, the UAE, other modern Middle Eastern countries and cities want is that protection. They want to show the US that, hey, we're not like these other Middle Eastern countries who keep causing a fuss. We actually want to be just like you, actually. We think that our other Middle Eastern people are being so lame. Like, they care about all these injustices. They care about torturing our people. They care about you starting a war in our land for funsies. Yeah, no, that's like crazy. That's crazy. We actually like you guys. We want to be like you guys. Please protect us. Please. Please, don't be mean to us. Please, we'll give you new water slide inside of the UAE. And they'll see other countries right next to them be put in dangerous situations. They'll see the people who look just like them be put in situations where they are killed, starved, shot at, tortured. And they just sit around. They're fine with it. They have all the resources in the world because, Andrew Tate, not all of us have immense resources like Dubai, not even from the natural resources get-go, because some people stole a lot of our natural resources in history. That's so awkward how that happened. Huh? You know, just pearly things. The girl who says like slavery is okay, and she said women shouldn't be allowed to vote, and divorce should be illegal, and abuse should be okay, and all of those other misogynistic, racist, awful things. She's just like the UAE. She's just like Dubai, but instead of pandering to the West, she's pandering to men, particularly the men in the manosphere around her. She'll happily say anything, even if it's harmful to herself, even if she doesn't necessarily believe it, because she wants them to like her so bad. She wants to be afforded the same rights, the same privileges as they are within that like right-wing area. One of Pearl's favorite talking points is that women in their early to mid-20s, if they are high value, if they are worthwhile, should be married. She loves the nuclear family. She loves heteronormative couples and family standards. But you know what? Pearl is 28 and unmarried. She spent multiple years of her life trying to pander to men, trying to show them that she is the high-value woman, even if she goes against everything she ever says. She is the high-value woman. She is the one who isn't like the rest of us. And yet, they still don't want her. And yet, she still isn't even treated equally like these other guys. They do not respect her. Because at the end of the day, she's just not what they want. The women that they tend to favor, at least sexually, are the ones that they call sluts, or the ones they say are impure, unvaluable. They like women who are sexually attractive. Also, fine. Maybe if you're not calling them names, it's fine. She won't have any girlfriends because any girl who hears what she talks about will not want to be her friend. These guys will never be her real friend because they don't like women. Not personally, at least. These men don't respect anything we say. They don't think anything we say is at all intelligent, even if we are much more intelligent than they are. At the end of the day, these boys like their other little boyfriends. They would rather listen to them talk about whatever, just yap, 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 talk, 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 and they will happily sit there and watch and smile and be so excited. But the second a woman starts talking, they aren't happy. Even if she is doing everything in her power to make them like her, first of all that shows is self-esteem issues, and second of all, it just feels empty and hollow, and they still don't care. Dubai, to me, is very similar. Dubai is looking at all of these Western countries with all of this power and going, look, we're trying to be like you. We're trying to be better than you. We're trying to be everything that you've ever wanted, because our countries are run by the elite and not by the citizens. And the countries are looking at it being like, that's so cool. I'll visit, but you are still in the Middle East. Yeah, you are. And the Middle East is still not valuable to them in anything but exploiting us. Dubai can look at them and say, oh, you have issues with crime, you have issues with drugs, the streets are dirty, you hate that, right? So we've taken away all the poor people who might want to commit things like robbery, to stay alive. We've taken away all of the people who might live on the streets, God forbid, and we've put them away. You won't have to see any of that. And still, the other countries are like, that's so cool, I might visit, but we're not giving you anything extra. The only thing Middle Eastern countries have ever done to gain any sort of privilege from the US or the UK or just the West is having oil and selling it. We've already done that, right? We've made those deals. They might change in the future. There is nothing else we can do because they will never respect us the same way. Never. And Dubai, in the process of trying to be that impossible thing that they can never, ever be, has turned its back on everyone else who is anything like them and has become completely hollow. I've seen multiple TikToks where people say, oh, you spent a week in Dubai? That's too long. Dubai's for the weekend. It is not for a week. You know why? Because anything you can get in Dubai, you can get elsewhere. Anything except for the class segregation, that's a teeny weeny bit harder. You know why? Because anything you can get in Dubai either comes from somewhere else or you can get it anywhere else. Dubai has the whole class segregation thing on lock, but otherwise it's just a squeaky clean, completely hollow city. Maybe you spend a day or two there living the high life, but how many times can you just go out to the bars, Dubai has rid itself of anything that ever made it unique in order to pander to the West, and in the process has become the most hollow, boring city in the world. And it's turned its back on everyone else. A city like Dubai, a country like the UAE, has so much money. And other Middle Eastern countries have gone through some awful stuff and are going through some awful stuff. But in an attempt to keep on pandering, they've decided to ignore it, to say, oh my God, they're being so dramatic. And while they are having these lavish cities, they're flying in water because there's no more potable water. We are watching other people who look like us die. They could be saving these people. They could be feeding these people. They could be doing something with all these resources they have, and they're not. People like Just Pearly Things have a voice. They have a platform. They get these boys to, at the very least, put them on their podcasts. And what does she say? Everything they want. She just becomes one of them and still doesn't get anything for it. Being the good Middle Eastern country, the quiet Middle Eastern country, the capitalistic Middle Eastern country, the Middle Eastern country that is willing to take advantage of things like exploitative labor, just like we do here in the West, is valuable in their minds, but in reality, how much is it worth? Because the US isn't going to marry you. The UK is not going to marry you. They don't want you. Because just like how Fresh and Fit, Andrew Tate are not going to marry Pearl, the US, the UK, any other powerful Western country is not going to marry you, Dubai. They're not going to marry you, the UAE, because at the end of the day, you are still Middle Eastern above everything. You are still Arab above everything. It doesn't matter if you make a country with 88% expats, you are still going to be the United Arab Emirates. So to all of you who love Dubai, who think of it as this cool vacation spot, maybe think about what about your communities make them cool. Traveling is always nice. You always want to see new places, but go somewhere that's real. Go to somewhere else in the Middle East. There are plenty of places that are gorgeous in the Middle East and want your tourist money. I don't mean to shill for my own people, but go to Egypt. Nice country, guys. And when you see that it is super clean and super crime-free and you think of that as the ideal, you have to understand what makes it so that your community isn't clean, isn't crime-free. And when you really look at it, it's a lack of education, a lack of housing, a lack of any sort of legitimate social welfare system. People inherently deserve to live, to exist, to eat, to have healthcare. Those are all things that at least I think, and I think anybody with any empathy thinks, are basic human rights. Instead of escaping into the capitalistic circle jerk, try and do what you can to support your own community, because I promise it is more interesting than Dubai is. I pinky promise it's more interesting. Look around your community, stop thinking about how boring it is because you're used to it, and really see it for what it is. The diversity of the people around you, the diversity of their experiences, all have built up a community that exists now because it was built off of generations. Dubai was built off of the backs of one generation of migrant workers who were exploited. The United States was built off of the back of slavery and the genocide of indigenous people, and that is horrific and awful, but we need to make sure we know that. We need to make sure we keep that in mind. We need to make sure that we are always dealing with the consequences of that. We need to make sure we learn about prominent Black people, prominent Indigenous people, prominent people of color who have done significant things in our communities because they are significant. They've done a great thing. Even if they didn't build stupid Burj Khalifa, they have still been great, and they've done so much more culturally than building the Burj Khalifa has. No offense to the migrant workers who did it, offense to Dubai. Stay informed, stay active, learn about the things that your communities are looking for, learn about the issues that your community has so that you can try and help make it better, because civic engagement, voting, that kind of thing are really, really important. I'm recording this on November 6th, the day after Election Day, and I am so thoroughly disappointed in everything that happened yesterday because I was so hopeful. And this video was supposed to be like escapist, but it has turned out just me saying vote and be involved in your communities, because America sucks. It sucks so bad, and there are so many people who suck and who want to take advantage of us. But as long as we are not leaving, as long as we are staying here, it is our right and our duty to do what is best. Even if both options suck, there are options that are better, at least less worse. And even if you hate every presidential candidate, maybe vote for your local things. There was a pretty big issue on the ballot in Ohio, issue 1, to just end gerrymandering, which is crazy. And because of the way our local politicians skewed the wording of it, they made it seem like we wanted to ratify gerrymandering into the Ohio Constitution. And that kind of wording, that kind of manipulation works on people when they don't know what's happening. It's really, really important to me and important to a lot of people who are affected by these issues that you stay civically engaged and informed and you care about every member of your community, not just your own self-interests. The United States is a really big country and we have a lot of people and a lot of people with similar interests who just don't get along because of political issues. And it makes me really sad because I feel like if I could talk to a lot of the working class people in the United States, we could come to an agreement that is good and that is helpful for all of us. Because at the end of the day, things like social welfare services that help poor people instead of hiding them by arresting them for existing outside of a home because they can't afford a home and nobody will, provide them with any housing. That is so much cheaper and much more helpful to everyone, including working class people in the Midwest. Everything sucks right now, like really, really sucks, and I am not happy. I'm so tired and I'm so disappointed, but the only thing I can do is emphasize to the 3 people who are going to watch this that it is really, really important to vote, to stay civically engaged, care about the people around you, because Andrew Tate is not going to do anything for you, but your community will. And the more that we stop being this gross, individualistic, capitalistic, like brain rot version of ourselves, the more that we can get done. I'm sounding a little workers of the world unite, but like workers of the world unite, guys. Like we have so much power as individuals that we just aren't tapping into because rich people are telling us that it's like the wrong thing to do and that we shouldn't be nice to each other and that we shouldn't listen to each other and that other people who are also having a hard time are somehow out to get us. And that's just not true. So be nice to people that don't look like you. Be nice to people who have a hard time and listen to when people talk about prejudices and histories that make it so that they have systemic issues. Because I promise you, Black people do not want to have a lower socioeconomic status. They've been put in a situation where they have it because they didn't get to start the race at the same time as the white colonizers did. Indigenous people don't want the history that they've had. They don't want their ancestors to have been genocided. They don't want the like free college and tax benefits they get now if it means that they have to have the history they've had. But if that's all we can do for them now, then yes, we should do that and more. And you should listen to them because not all of us know how that feels. And not all of us know how, okay, fine, some of my ancestors died. All of my ancestors died, I guess, but it hasn't caused systemic issues in how I live now. I will never understand what it's like to be Black or to be Indigenous, especially in the United States. I'm very privileged for that, but just because I'm privileged, just because I could live in an echo chamber if I really wanted to, it doesn't mean that I don't have a duty to not do that. Dubai, you can live in a world where you have no empathy. In the US, you have to actively try to have no empathy, or you're just evil. It's hard and it takes a little bit of time and it feels really bad. And your life is still going to be easier if you acknowledge your privilege. Your life is still always going to be easier than those of other people because of your privilege. So bare minimum you can do is acknowledge it, learn about it, and at the very least, try and help those people around you who are not as privileged as you are. When you're saying that women are under attack, maybe support women. When you're saying Black people, women of color especially, trans women of color especially, are being attacked, maybe support them because I promise you, they don't want for their lives to be hard. Homeless people don't want to be homeless. They're not doing that for funsies. Black people are not saying that they're discriminated against for funsies. Like, that's not how that works. Nobody wants this lack of privilege. They just exist with it. And when they ask for something to help with that, they should not be ridiculed. And you should not be doing the ridiculing, especially if you have so much privilege. So be aware of the people around you, be kind to the people around you because they deserve it just as much as other people who look like you deserve it. I'm really angry and I'm really upset. But this is like the stuff I'm really passionate about. So it's hard sometimes to balance that with, making sure I don't like burst into tears at any point. But I hope it meant something to you. I hope the whole video meant something to you. I hope it like is a call to action. I hope it really does motivate you to be more involved in your community. And I'll like, you can tell me if you want to hear more stuff like this. You can subscribe to me. I have other videos like this and other videos not so much like this. And like it if it meant something to you. I would really appreciate that, because really all I want is to reach people and really make something meaningful to them. So if I did that, let me know, I guess. Um, if you're in the US, please be safe and get a lot of rest and eat enough food and try and be as happy as you possibly can. Though I know a lot of us can't, just ignore the consequences of what happened last night. Um, I will see you later, hopefully. Bye.